Hi, beautiful people. Welcome to the Fort Salem Library, where we read you your fanfiction. So sit down or don't, relax or don't, and enjoy these stories in a way you have not before. We at Fort Salem Library do not own Motherland Fort Salem or any of the related characters. The Motherland Fort Salem series is created by Elliot Lawrence and owned by Freeform. This story is a work of fanfiction and is meant for entertainment only. We are not making any profit from these stories. All rights of the original Motherland Fort Salem story belong to Freeform. We also do not own A Very Necro Holiday or any of its original characters and storylines. We did, however, get permission from the author to read their story. This story was created and written by TruFreak89, and you can find the link in our show notes. This story is being read to you by Ilaria.
Scylla sat cross-legged on the living room floor of the house she and Rael shared, her tongue poking out the side of her mouth as she focused on the task in hand. She moved the knife she was holding with the steady precision of a surgeon, while next to her, Rael butchered the pumpkin siding in front of her. They'd been carving their pumpkins together in a comfortable silence for the better part of half an hour. Both had drawn frightening faces onto their pumpkins with marker before carving them, but while Scylla had followed her guide marks perfectly, Rael hadn't been so careful. Her pumpkin's wide eyes and lopsided toothy grin looked about as intimidating as a puppy. Rael looked over and saw her girlfriend trying and failing to bite back a smirk. Then she spotted Scylla's masterpiece and threw her knife down with a huff. Scylla's pumpkin, with its narrow, menacing eyes and rows of jagged teeth, was so much scarier than hers. "My pups usually help me with the carving," she said with a heavy sigh, crossing her arms over her chest in a sulk. Scylla felt her heart swell at the adorable sight. It was their first Samhain spent together, and Scylla was grateful to spend her favorite holiday with her girlfriend. Scylla abandoned her own creation as set about trying to fix Rael's. "Why do we carve these stupid things anyway? Isn't this just about civilians making money off our holiday?" Rael grumbled, her cheeks tinged red with embarrassment. "Our ancestors used to carve them, or more accurately, they carved turnips and gourds. It wasn't until our people came to America that they started using pumpkins. Easier to carve." Scylla gave her a pointed grin, amusement dancing in her eyes as Rael's blushing deepened. Scylla focused on carving some teeth into the otherwise smooth smile of Rael's cherry pumpkin. Samhain marks the beginning of the dark half of the year. It's also the time when the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead are at their thinnest. Our ancestors carved these lanterns to scare away vengeful spirits and bad fae that might try to enter their houses. Rael wrapped herself around Scylla, holding her with an adoring smile as she watched her work. She loved how serious Scylla could be about this stuff, So it's a necro holiday? Scylla gave a small nod while she worked. It's my favorite. She fell silent again, but it sounded like she wanted to say more. Rael didn't push. They'd know each other long enough now and gone through enough for Rael to know Scylla needed to go at her own pace with these kinds of conversations. Sure enough, once she was finished with Rael's pumpkin, she sat her knife down on the floor and continued like there'd been no pause. My mom would tell me stories about Samhain, like Lady Gwyn. She was a headless woman in white who carried a black pig and chased is foolish enough to go wandering in the night during Samhain, or the Dolan, creatures that were an omen of death. But my favorite was the fairy host, a group of hunter fae who would hunt Samhain and kidnap people they encountered. They flew through the air with a pack of wild dogs, their howling sounding like the roar of the wind. Scylla recounted the story fondly, like a child might tell a heroic fairy tale. I always used to imagine the fairy host would come steal me away to the fair world. She bit her lip as she made the admission, expecting Rael to laugh. She didn't. Grinning, she pressed a kiss to Scylla's cheek. You necros are so weird. Good job. You're so sexy. She kissed her way along Scylla's jaw and down to her throat, her teeth raking over Scylla's pulse point and making her jiggle. I might not be a fair huntress, but I can whisk you off your feet and into our bed, Rael said, her voice a suggestive growl in Scylla's ear. I like the sound of that, Scylla said, even as she unwrapped Rael's arms from around her waist. But we have to put this outside first. We don't want any vengeful spirits interrupting us. Scylla stood and picked up her own pumpkin, leaving Rael to carry the one she salvaged for her. It looks much better, thanks to Scylla's touch. Outside on the porch, they placed their respective pumpkins on the steps, and Scylla used her lighter on the tea lights inside, the flickering light casting the angular features in grim shadows that would scare away even the most hardened of evil spirits. Scylla didn't have long to admire her handiwork in the soft glow of the candlelight before Rael scooped her up bridle, styled to carry her off to bed. She was willing to make a sizable bet that they would only make it as far as the stairs. Experience had taught her how impatient Rael could be. Scylla didn't mind in the slightest. Samhain was the favorite holiday of Necros, and her adoring girlfriend was going to make sure Scylla celebrated in full. Come morning, the candles in their pumpkins would be out, but Scylla's witch mark would be shinier than 1,000 jack-o'-lanterns.
Please find the fanfiction you just listened to on Archive of Our Own, and leave the author some love. Without them, this wouldn't be possible, and we want to thank them from the bottoms of our hearts for creating these amazing stories and keeping the show alive.